This is to Ono Bryn on the question of whether Sinn Fein are standing up to the government properly as an opposition when it comes to its entire panoply of COVID measures. This is Fintan Dunn for Informed Consent.ie. How are you, Owen? I hope you're doing well. We have met. And Owen, I'd like to begin by just speaking about Claire Daly, and not you, or attacking you. And Claire Daly gave an impassioned speech in the Dáil some years ago, one you would have been proud to deliver yourself, Owen. It was about narcolepsy and swine flu vaccines. And she was pointing out the appalling treatment of victims of a rushed through swine flu vaccine, that it was known to have this potential for side effect, and yet it was deployed by the Irish government, and as a result, so many people suffered narcolepsy, not just in Ireland, but across Europe. And they are still swinging in the wind, looking for proper redress for that injury. A terrible disgrace and a shadow over their lives, which will last their entire lives long. And it just goes to show you why. Because recently Claire Daly reported that she'd taken the new COVID vaccine, also rushed through with in fact even less testing than the swine flu vaccine. How is it that someone sharp enough to realise that in an emergency you can get things happening that aren't prudent and aren't well examined, and therefore you should be cautious about taking something? It just shows you, doesn't it, that we're all human. Because Claire Daly, I'm telling you, you shouldn't have taken that vaccine, Claire. Because, and neither should you, neither should anyone who is under the age of 50 who has half a brain. Because it's not warranted. The risks attaching to the vaccine are an order of magnitude higher than any benefit you might extract from it. If you are young and healthy, you have an absolute risk reduction in this vaccine of 1%. A 1% reduction in your absolute risk, not relative risks or other fancy 98 point something percent risks that they like to quote, but your absolute risk reduction, if you are a healthy individual, is around 1% taking the vaccine. And your risk of a side effect, which could last you your life, is far, far higher than the consequent risk to you of any COVID infection. Certainly now, what we have with therapeutics that we have, the vast majority of people do not need these vaccines. Now, where is questioning? So the humanity is that Claire Daly, an opponent of such a practice, defending victims of such a practice, signed up to it herself. Why? Because we're being hyped and steamrolled into it. And it requires dispassionate analysis to come up with the questions that probe the heart of the matter. And that's what's not coming from Sinn Fein. Because we're not stupid, not all of us. There are many doctors, professionals at the highest levels of the medical profession and the scientific elite. I've been in communication with them. I'm at this 20 years, Owen. This isn't the first time. Swine flu wasn't the first time. This hysteria happened with SARS also. This hysteria is beneficial to a particular industry. And we have rights of refusal to participate in this experimental vaccine. And I'm here to speak in defense of those victims. I'm watching them like lambs to the slaughter on. Taking the jab. Yeah, it's all great. Until you realize you have been conned, that the risk to you on an absolute basis is far, far higher from the vaccine. We are seeing in the adverse vaccine events reporting systems in Europe and in the United States decadal highs in a short period of time. We're blowing through decades of prior side effects from millions and millions of vaccines administered up until now. Those side effects are being blown right out of it by a wave of side effect reports which are coming into those systems. Are you aware of that? Are you defending the Irish people against that? Are you aware? You have to be. I mean, if you heard of Florida, You have to be aware that Florida's been open since last September. That Florida's dispensed with all of these lockdown measures which are designed to induce compliance into purchasing a particular product, an overpriced product from a cartel which has absolute immunity from any consequential damage which that product might produce. What a sweetheart deal. So we're watching a marketing arm of the pharmaceutical industry roll out a bunch of vaccine products which are an untested experimental medication and then attempt to compel people to take that medication. When in fact we have things like ivermectin, which is being used in India. We have things like hydroxychloroquine. We also have a whole range of therapies which are there right now, besides those two drugs which are dirt cheap and make no money for pharmaceutical industry, by the way. We have other therapies available. Now, if you have alternative therapies available, you don't need to go down the road of an experimental vaccine, particularly as it doesn't give you the kind of immunity you would obtain as a healthy individual contracting this virus in any way. So the risk to you is far higher. And these adverse events which are taking place will in many cases have lifelong effects. They will vastly outnumber the consequences of the swine flu vaccine. That's just on the issue of vaccines alone. Where's your robust opposition to the entire lockdown mania, which has been a disastrous mistake? It's funny that you are on, as a party, on the threshold of power, and yet the single issue which, if you had the guts to face up to the realities, the sordid realities of this money-grubbing power grab, is that you could build a reputation for having defended the Irish people in their time of need against the ravages of a conscienceless international pharmaceutical agenda. So that's the kind of robust opposition we'd like to see. Instead, it's been marginalised. The proper opposition has been marginalised by your failure as a party to diligently examine the international scene, to realise the consequences that you have to draw from what happened in Sweden, where they haven't done that to their children in the schools. Owen, Mary Lou. I want to be able to see a difference between Mary Lou MacDonald and all those who came before. I don't want another Mary Harney, thank you. I want to see opposition, real opposition. Informed opposition, which does not marginalise views which I am expressing here, which are merely repeating the learned views which I have studied over the last year or more. I've been here before in opposition to a similar pharmaceutical agenda in relation to HIV/AIDS and the use of a dodgy test there as well to suck people into therapeutics which had sometimes little, if any, benefit, and in many cases were absolutely murderous. This is the real world where these abuses are going on, the corrupt and rotten medical system which we have. I don't see Sinn Fein trying to reform the corrupt and rotten medical system we have. I see you enabling it further. I see you just sitting on the fence, attempting to slide your arse into power by not really standing for anything. It's not going to work. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I don't care about your power ambitions. What I care about is what you need to do is discharge your responsibility as an opposition. Go look at the alternatives which are being put forward by those who oppose current government policies. Study them. Listen to the people who are making these points. And then start addressing those issues in the Dáil. If that doesn't work, start addressing them on the street. In front of RTE, for example. Instead of all of you bunch of idiots being an ass-kissing cozy cartel which has its head up his ass and is engaged in catastrophic, self-interested groupthink. It's corrupt. All of it is corrupt. All of it is corrupt. It's rotten and corrupt. Staged news. Been there, done that, Owen, with the mother and baby homes issue. Been there and done it all. Listen to Mary Lou MacDonald tell me and Kathy McMahon, who founded Irish First Mothers for these women who were in those homes, that she wanted this commission of investigation to go ahead. That we shouldn't go into the High Court to stop it on the basis that those who were giving testimony were being misinformed. They were not realizing that they had the right to give sworn evidence. And as a result, as we all now know, and as we told you, Sinn Fein, at the time, as a result, their evidence was unsworn testimony. Now, we wanted to stop that happening back when it was happening, not afterwards, when everybody says, oh, really, that's terrible that they took no sworn testimony. Imagine that. Yeah, well, we told you all, and you told us all to shut up and forget about it. It'll be all right on the night. It wasn't all right on the night. All those women got rolled over by the civil service, head of departments, education, justice, health, and DCYA, the Mother and Baby Home Cover-Up Committee. Robust opposition was what was required at the time when those mother and baby home issues were being dealt with. Didn't happen. Robust opposition is again required here, now, today, in terms of what this government is doing. We need to Florida, baby. We need to Florida right now. We need the Ron DeSantis coming out of Sinn Fein. It's about standing up for the people around you, the people among whom you live. Standing up for your own nation, standing up for your people against these thugs in white coats. And when we stood up to them, we will then have a health system to be proud of, because we will be no more frittering it away in fruitless exercises to merely enrich the pharmaceutical cartel some more, to merely extend the useless health system yet further until half of us are sick and the other half are looking after them. It's a time for action. It's a time to speak up. It's a time to voice real opposition. Thanks for your time, Owen.